Mike, explain to us the recent Supreme Court decision and the significance of it, and should people be freaking out?
No, I wouldn't say the people should be freaking out. I think the Supreme Court I think they're being cowards, frankly. I don't think they're following the law, but they punted the decision back to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals to decide what kind of notice, how long the Trump administration, the president needs to provide to Tren de Aragua foreign terrorists before the president of the United States can expel foreign terrorists under the Alien Enemies Act. I would say the time should be zero because the statute does not provide that there's any time frame. But it's going to go back to the Fifth Circuit. The Fifth Circuit's going to have to figure out how many days it will take to appease their bosses on the Supreme Court, whether it's 3 days, 7 days, 14 days, 21 days, whatever the time frame is. And so then the president will have to give notice to these Tren de Aragua terrorists, and then they have a chance to file a habeas petition during that time frame. If they file a habeas petition, I guess the Fifth Circuit's going to have to figure out whether it goes to a district court or it goes to an executive branch immigration judge. It's unclear, probably through the district courts, and then who knows how long that will take, who knows the number of appeals. I would say to these Supreme Court justices, it's very hard to be a general, and it's very hard to be a senator, and they're not very good at it. So maybe they should just stick to their day job of deciding cases and controversies of the parties properly before them with redressable claims. Nothing more, nothing less. That's their Article 3 power.
So, Mike, help me understand. Are we trending towards a potential Supreme Court decision where we're going to have 20 million trials for the 20 million people illegally in the United States of America? Will there be any nuance issued that we have to give full trials and due process for every person that has broken into America?
That's a good question. I guess it depends on what the 7 senators on the Supreme Court, 2 of them are going to follow the law. Justice Thomas and Justice Alito are going to follow the law. We have 7 Supreme Court justices who want to be generals and tell the president of the United States he has to turn around military planes expelling terrorists. We have 7 generals who tell the president he can't expel foreign terrorists. You have seven generals who think that you have to provide who knows how many days of notice and who knows what kind of supposed due process. Look, illegal aliens do not have the same constitutional rights that American citizens have. Their Fifth Amendment constitutional rights, to the extent they exist, are you here illegally? And if you're here illegally, do you have an excuse? You need to go home. If you're claiming asylum, there's a process for that. But just running across the border and living here for several years and then claiming asylum when you get caught is just not how it works. And so the Supreme Court needs to figure out.
But Mike, here's the issue, though. Well, here's the issue. I agree. But a lot of the people that came under Biden all claimed the scam of asylum. That the majority were not gotaways. The majority were people that said, oh, please take me into custody. Asylum, asylum. Here's the magic words, hocus pocus. Are we not allowed to expel them immediately, or do they have to get full trials adjudicating their asylum claim? And why do we have the asylum scam in the first place?
That's a very good question. And I think Congress needs to close down the asylum scam, make it very hard to claim asylum. Because guess what? If you're being persecuted in your country, you're not being persecuted in the country next door. Why do you have to come to America, right? And so that's the issue. There are people who have true asylum claims, like the Afrikaners in South Africa, who are being hunted down and slaughtered because they are whites, simply because of their race. They would have a legitimate asylum claim. But if you are in Central America or South America and you just want to come to America to work, then that's not a legitimate asylum claim. I would just ask this: if they're being persecuted and tortured back home, why did they leave their wife and kids back home? Why didn't they bring their wife and kids with them when they're coming to America? It's obvious they're scamming the asylum system. So the Supreme Court needs to understand this. If they're going to require constitutional full due process and trials for 20 million illegal immigrants, the Supreme Court is going to lose its legitimacy, and that's all it has.
Very, very good. I know you got to dash in a second here, Mike, but what should happen if President Trump gets a Supreme Court decision that says you must have 20 million trials? Is that it? Are we exhausted? Are we done at that point?
I hope the Supreme Court does not get to that point, because I think the American people did not agree with that at all, not in our founding, not after the Civil War when we ratified the post-Civil War amendments, not any time since then through statute, certainly not in this last election, right? The American people gave the president a mandate to expel these illegal aliens, all 20 million of them. They're all criminals, particularly Tren de Aragua and MS-13, the most vicious terrorists in the Western Hemisphere. And if the Supreme Court puts up, if the Supreme Court makes up the constitutional due process rights that are equivalent to Americans' due process rights, it's not going to fly. Remember this, it took the Supreme Court 30,000 hours to provide relief to January 6th defendants. It took them less than 24 hours to provide relief to Tren de Aragua terrorists. Something is fundamentally flawed.